Fena Pirate Princess captivated many anime fans the moment it was revealed. PVs with absolutely beautiful visuals that had so many people anticipating the series coming out. And while me personally, I was captivated as well, and I love the beginnings of this series, I did have my issues as the series went along. But this is my review of Fena Pirate Princess, or Kaizoku Oujo, a 12-episode series that aired between the summer and fall anime season. The creator was Kazuto Nakazawa, who did Be the Beginning as well as Genius Party Moon Dive, and music by Yuki Kajiura, who is known for doing many of the Type Moon series, including Fate, as well as Demon Slayer. Fena Pirate Princess opens up with a girl named Fena Hauptmann, and at the time she's currently being dressed up and to be sold to a man. And while she's devastated by this and cooped up almost like a bird in a cage, two of her old servants come to rescue her. At the same time, while they're fleeing, they're being protected by this group known as the Goblin Knights. After escaping, they're then taken to this place known as Goblin Island. It's almost like this floating island that is housing many people from Japan who are out seeking out this treasure that was once stolen from their homeland. And the leader of this particular group, Yukihisa, has his sights set on Fena, as Fena is the daughter of the man that used to own this island, Franz Hauptmann. And as we see through some backstories, we see that Fena was once on this voyage along with her father and many others, and they were seeking out this treasure, this Eden. But unfortunately, their ship was sunk, and that's when Fena was separated. Now back in the presence of those that worked alongside Franz, they're hoping that Fena, somewhere inside of her mind, has the knowledge, the key to finding this Eden that her father was once searching for. So thus Fena, along with these other Goblin Knights, set on a voyage to go find Eden. Along the way, running into many other groups, including Abel, who is part of the Royal British Navy, and Rumble Rose, who is this group of pirates that are working for Abel. It seems like everybody has a desire to find this Eden, and they all know that Fena has the one thing that could possibly unlock its location. And along the journey, you kind of see this growth in Fena, as she learns the things about the world, goes on this journey with these other Goblin Knights, securing trust with them and her, but ultimately getting to this point where we realize that everybody's kind of seeking out things for their own gain. And the effects that has on Fena and her trust for other people is obviously one crucial role of the story. First things first, this series is absolutely gorgeous. There was so many points in this series that just had my jaw dropping. The visual quality of this series is fantastic. There was so many visual points, so many backdrops, animation segments that just really had me in awe. Production IG that worked on this series did a phenomenal job. The directing was on top notch. The music was fantastic. Everything through visual and audio was perfection with this series. I had so many points, especially the combat sequences, that just had me going for this series. Which really gets me to the core thoughts that I had, especially early on with this series. The comparison I draw is with Rage of Bahamut. Now, Rage of Bahamut had zero expectations going into that series as well, this being original, and Rage of Bahamut being a series that was based off of a mobile game. But both of them did the same thing early on. It presented a concept, a story, a goal that the characters would end up going towards, while providing two aspects that were the vehicle in which it was so enjoyable: top-notch animation and fun character chemistry. They didn't have to do anything else. They had a goal, and they presented things in a very entertaining way that drove you along the way. You didn't care what the end-game goal was. You didn't care that there was some crazy plot twist happening along the ways. It was entertaining through and through, just based on visual and chemistry. And while Rage of Bahamut kept to this all the way to the end of its first season, not talking about the second season, by the way, Fena Pirate Princess lost its way at some point. While it kept the visual and audio quality that it's always had, besides maybe a fight later on in the series that was a little bit less quality, the story itself got in the way. The story itself got in the way of the chemistry and ultimately ruined the show for me. Early on, Fena had character, and that character was constantly banging off of the other characters. You had the Goblin Knights, and they were all very serious about what they were doing. Well, yeah, Karen's a little goofy, and Tsubaki has his quirks. But most of them were very serious about what they're doing. They were trained knights. They knew what they were doing, and they were very good at it. But Fena was the innocence that injected into their story. Innocence that ultimately created bonds in them, made them stronger and closer to each other. And that goofiness was constantly this chemistry that drove the story forward. Seeing Fena react to things, and people react to Fena, that was the chemistry, and that was the enjoyable experience early on as you watch these characters grow and get stronger and closer. But unfortunately, sometime later in the series, about 3/4 in, Fena becomes separated from them. And unfortunately, Fena becomes a quiet, silent character. She no longer has an attitude, a bubbly attitude that bounces off the other characters, and the other characters don't interact with her well. And the story overall focuses on Eden. Eden becomes the core focus of the story. It becomes everything the writer focuses on, and ultimately ruins the series, because unfortunately, Eden's not interesting. The end goal isn't interesting. And the final episode, the final reveals, aren't interesting. What was interesting about Fena Pirate Princess was Fena. It was Karen. It was Yukimaru. It was Shitan. It was Tsubaki. It was the characters. And unfortunately, the writer forgot that. The writer forgot that probably halfway through the series, and it never had that same sting that it had early on. And ultimately, what disappointed me so much about this series, I loved it. I was invested in it early on. I loved the characters. I loved the visuals. I loved what it was presenting me. But unfortunately, the story decided that that wasn't what was important. What was important was Eden, and Eden never was important. And what was funny was at some point, when I realized the story was focusing on this end story, I was okay with it. I thought the writer had something that it wanted to tell. But what was really unfortunate was that that last moment, that last reveal, this big plot point in which it reveals everything, I realized because it left Fena behind so long ago, that decision really doesn't work for Fena, because it ultimately requires Fena to have made a lot of very critical decisions and to have grown. But when the series decided to take the steering wheel away from Fena very early on in the series, it ultimately made that point useless because she never made decisions, and she never was a focal point. The focal point was Eden, Abel, and her mother. And that unfortunately ruined the ending. It kind of made me wonder if the series was intended to be a 2-core series, because then we would have had more time to have Fena have those decisions. We would have had Fena deal with difficult situations, have Fena realize that the world may be harsh, that the world does have issues, that would ultimately make that choice in the end critical, significant, but it never was there. With all that said, I did enjoy a lot of the character stories. Shitan and his relationship with Yukimaru was fantastic. Unfortunately, their relationship with Kei, this other character, wasn't really executed on in the end, which was kind of unfortunate as well. Another kind of sign that I felt like the series was initially intended to be 2 cores. Karen is always fantastic, and Karen will always be fantastic, and Karen is the best character of the show, by the way. It is Karen Pirate Princess, by the way. Abel was great. I actually thought Abel was a fantastic character, and so was Rumble Rose, but unfortunately, again, underutilized, which again, I think is probably because it was intended to be 2 cores. There was a lot of potential here. This series had a lot of production value. There was so many beautiful points in the show. I love the characters so much. But again, unfortunately, like I said, I think they lost the point. They missed something somewhere and strayed from what made it so great early on. But still, it's a good watch. I really did enjoy it. If anything, you can watch the first half of the show and get a great little adventure out of it, because that's what it really was. In the beginning, it was Fena Pirate Princess. It was their adventure, and I still do enjoy it for that. But that's my thoughts on Fena Pirate Princess. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what's the other series if you're going to check it out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon if you can, or in the tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.